The stadium lights of Kingston burned bright, a hush fell over the crowd, thousands of eyes were fixed on the starting blocks. In lane 4, a figure stood poised. Her name was Shanoya Douglas. She was not the favorite tonight. The sprinters to her left had bigger names. The sprinters to her right had more titles. They were giants of the track. But Shanoya was calm. Her breath was steady. She looked down the 100-meter stretch of tartan track. It was a familiar path, a path she had run countless times in her dreams. And in reality, this single race was more than just a competition. It was the culmination of years of relentless effort, a testament to a spirit that refused to be broken. The air was thick with anticipation. You could feel the energy ripple through the stands. Every spectator, every coach, every fellow athlete knew what was at stake. This was the national championship. A spot on the Olympic team was on the line. For Shanoya, this was the moment that could change everything. It was the threshold between being a talented runner and becoming a legend. Her muscles were coiled springs, ready to explode. The journey to this starting line had been long and arduous, filled with early mornings, sore muscles, and moments of deep, crushing doubt. The starter raised his pistol. The world seemed to shrink, focusing down to the length of that track. Shanoya's mind went quiet. All the training, all the advice from her coach, all the support from her family in Trelawney. It all came down to these next 10 seconds. She carried the hopes of her community, her family, and herself. This was her moment to prove that she belonged, not just in this race, but among the greats. The crack of the gun shattered the silence. Shanoya exploded from the blocks. Her form was perfect, a symphony of power and grace. For a split second, all the runners were a single, unified blur. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, the figure in lane 4 began to pull away. She wasn't just running, she was flying. The gap between her and the rest of the field widened with every powerful stride. The crowd erupted, a wave of sound that followed her down the track. This was more than a race, it was a declaration. Shanoya's journey to that starting line is a modern-day epic. It is a story that fits the timeless pattern of a hero's journey. She began as an ordinary girl from a small town in Jamaica, blessed with an extraordinary gift. But talent alone is never enough. Her path was not a straight line to the top. It was a winding road filled with obstacles, setbacks, and moments that tested her spirit to its very core. This essay will explore that journey, charting her rise from a promising schoolgirl athlete to a national icon. It is a story of determination, resilience, and the incredible power of a supportive community. We will seek to answer the central questions of her life. How did this young woman from an unassuming background ascend to the pinnacle of her sport? What sacrifices did she have to make along the way? We will look at the physical toll of her training, the emotional toll of her training, the financial struggles her family endured, and the social life she gave up to pursue her singular dream. Her story is not just about winning races, it is about the price of victory and the strength required to pay it. Furthermore, her story is inextricably linked to the island that produced her. Jamaica has a legendary sprinting culture, a national obsession that fuels dreams and forges champions. We will examine how this environment shaped her from a young age, heroes she looked up to, fierce school competitions that prepared her for the world stage, network of coaches and mentors who saw her potential. Her success is a reflection of a system, a culture that believes in speed and nurtures it with a passion that is unmatched anywhere else in the world. Shanoya is a product of this rich, vibrant legacy. Finally, as we trace her path from lane 4 to legend, we will ask, where is she headed now? Having reached the summit, what new mountains are there to climb? A hero's journey does not end with a single triumph. It involves a transformation and a return. We will explore how Shanoya is using her platform, how she is giving back to her community, and what her future goals are, both on the track and off the track. Her story is still being written, and its next chapters promise to be just as compelling. It is a testament to the idea that with enough heart, an ordinary person can achieve the extraordinary. Shanoya Douglas was born in the parish of Trelawney. This part of Jamaica is known for its rolling hills and sugarcane fields. It is a place where the earth is rich and the sun is strong. People here work hard. They are connected to the land and to each other. Shanoya's family was no different. They did not have much money, but they had a strong sense of pride and community. Her father worked on a small farm and her mother sold goods at the local market. From them, Shanoya learned the value of discipline. She saw how they woke up before the sun and worked until dusk, never complaining. This work ethic became a part of her, long before she ever thought about running. Her childhood was simple but full of life. She spent her days playing outside with her cousins and neighbors. They would run barefoot through the fields, chasing chickens and each other. There were no manicured tracks or fancy running shoes. There was just the uneven, dusty ground beneath their feet. This is where Shanoya first discovered the joy of movement. She loved the feeling of the wind in her hair and the burn in her lungs. She was not trying to be the fastest, she was just being a child. But even then, older folks would watch her and nod. They saw a natural, easy grace in the way she moved, a power that seemed to come from the very soil she ran on. The community in Trelawney was tight-knit. Everyone knew everyone. If a family was struggling, neighbors would share what little they had. This sense of collective support was the air Shanoya breathed. It taught her that you are never truly alone. Your triumphs are the community's triumphs, and your struggles are their struggles too. Trelawney is also famous for something else. It is known as a cradle of sprinters. The most famous of them all, Usain Bolt, comes from this very parish. His larger-than-life posters were plastered on shop walls and barbershops. For Shanoya, he was not just a hero, he was proof. Proof that it was possible. Proof that a kid from the countryside, a kid who ran barefoot in the dirt, could conquer the world. His legacy hung in the air, a silent challenge and a powerful inspiration. It planted a seed in her young mind. Maybe, just maybe, she could be fast too. The first real test of Shanoya's speed came at her primary school's annual sports day. In Jamaica, school sports day is a serious affair. It is a festival of competition and school pride. Shanoya, about 9 years old, was chosen to run the 70-meter dash for her class. She was more nervous than she had ever been. She remembered her father's words that morning. "Just run your race, little one. Forget everybody else." She took a deep breath. Go. Shanoya didn't think. She just ran. She ran like she was chasing chickens back home. Crossing the line, she didn't even realize she had won. She had won. And easily. Mrs. Evans came over and knelt. She wore a wide smile. "Shanoya," she said, excited, "I think we have found what you're good at." That day changed something in Shanoya. It was the feeling of crossing first, a feeling of power, a feeling of accomplishment, a feeling of pride. She liked it. She wanted it again. The win at her school sports day was just the beginning. It put Shanoya on the radar of local coaches. Soon Shanoya was invited to a tryout. Her first coach was a man named Mr. Beckford. He coached in the evenings out of a pure love for the sport. He was a stern but fair man. He made her run drills until her legs felt like lead. He taught her the basics of form, how to hold her head, how to pump her arms, how to lift her knees. The training was grueling. It was a huge commitment for a young girl and her family. She would come home late, tired and sore, with homework still to do. Her family made sacrifices too. She saw older athletes who were national junior champions training on the same track. They became her new heroes. She learned that talent was just the entry ticket. The real price of success was paid in sweat, day after day, on that dusty track in Trelawney. As Shanoya's talent grew, so did the expectations. She started to dominate at local and parish-level competitions. People would come to the small meets just to see the little girl who runs like the wind. She began to understand that this was a potential pathway to a different life. These were not just her dreams, they were her family's dreams too. She could see it in their eyes every time she came home with another medal. This quiet understanding added another layer of pressure. She didn't want to let them down. She became harder on herself than Coach Beckford ever was. It was during this period that her family and Coach Beckford provided a crucial balance. He helped her reframe the pressure as a privilege. "People believe in you because they see your potential," he told her. "Don't let that weigh you down. Let it lift you up." Winning at the parish level was one thing, competing in Kingston was another. The call came after Shanoya dominated the Western Regional Championships. She was offered a scholarship to one of Jamaica's most prestigious high schools.
But accepting it meant leaving her family. The weight of this decision was immense. "This is your dream, Shanoya. We cannot hold you back from it. You must go."
Arriving in Kingston was a shock to her system. The city was a sprawling, noisy, chaotic beast. Her new school was a massive campus with thousands of students. She felt small and anonymous. The track program was on a different level entirely. Her new teammates were the best young athletes from across the island. They sized her up with skeptical eyes. She was no longer the big fish in a small pond. She was a tiny guppy in an ocean of sharks. Her first few weeks were a lonely struggle. She missed her family, terribly. She would call home every night, her voice barely a whisper as she fought back tears. The training was brutal. Her new coach, Coach Thompson, broke down her running form and started to rebuild it from scratch. For the first time, she was not the fastest in her training group. Doubts began to flood her mind. Was she good enough to be here? The answer to her doubts would be tested at the annual Intersecondary Schools Boys and Girls Championships, known simply as Champs. In Jamaica, Champs is more than a high school track meet, it is a national spectacle. Her first year, she was selected to run a leg on the 4x100-meter relay team. As she stood on the track, the roar of the crowd was a physical force. She had never felt pressure like this before. When the baton was slapped into her hand, instinct took over. The noise faded away. The world narrowed to her lane. She ran with a desperation she didn't know she possessed. She passed the baton to the anchor leg runner. Her job was done. She watched as her teammate crossed the finish line, securing the victory. In that moment, Shanoya understood. She was part of something bigger than herself. The shared victory felt even sweeter than her individual wins back home. She had contributed. She belonged. That first taste of success at Champs was a turning point. The loneliness started to fade, replaced by a sense of camaraderie with her teammates. The city of Kingston started to feel less like a monster and more like a place of opportunity. Under Coach Thompson's guidance, Shanoya's training became a science. He filmed her practice runs and they would spend hours in his office reviewing the footage frame by frame. The training regimen was holistic. Early mornings were spent in the weight room. Her diet was also strictly monitored. On the track, the workouts were designed to push her to her absolute limit and beyond. Coach Thompson taught her about race strategy. He was molding her into a complete athlete, not just a fast runner. This period was a slow and steady grind. Success was measured in fractions of a second shaved off her personal best time. She was getting stronger, faster, and smarter. Just as Shanoya was hitting her stride, disaster struck. During a block start, she exploded out with her usual power, but something felt wrong. A sharp, searing pain shot through her right hamstring. The diagnosis was a grade 2 hamstring tear. Her season was over. She would not be defending her title at Champs. The news was devastating. The weeks that followed were some of the most difficult of her life. While her teammates were on the track preparing for Champs, she was in the physiotherapy room. She had to watch from the sidelines as her biggest rival won the 100-meter title that she felt was hers. Dark thoughts crept in. Would she ever be as fast again? Was this the end of her dream? It was Coach Thompson and her family who pulled her through. He made her come to practice every day even though she couldn't run. He was showing her the sport from a different perspective, forcing her to become a student of the craft. The road back from the hamstring injury was long and slow. Shanoya's first few sessions back on the track were filled with fear. Her times were slow, far off her personal best. Coach Thompson understood this fear. He wanted her to understand the resilience that all great champions possess. The injury did not break you, he told her repeatedly. It made you smarter. It made you hungrier. Use it. Slowly, a change began to take hold. The injury, once a curse, was revealing itself to be a blessing in disguise. It forced her to stop relying solely on raw talent and to develop the mind of a tactician. By the time she was fully cleared to compete again, she was a different athlete. In her place stood a mature, thoughtful young woman who understood the fragility and resilience of a sprinter's body and mind. The fear was still there, a quiet hum in the background, but it no longer controlled her. Instead, it served as a reminder, a source of fuel that drove her to train smarter and to race with a newfound intelligence. Shanoya was now 20 years old. Her focus was singular, the Jamaican National Championships, which served as the Olympic trials. The competition was brutal. She would be running against the established queens of Jamaican sprinting. In the heats and semi-finals, Shanoya looked solid, but not spectacular. The television commentators barely mentioned her name. This suited her and Coach Thompson perfectly. They had a plan. On the day of the 100-meter final, the atmosphere in the National Stadium was electric. In the warm-up area, Shanoya kept to herself. She, in contrast, was an island of calm. As the finalists were called onto the track, a light drizzle began to fall. When Shanoya's name was called for lane 4, the reception was polite but muted. She was the underdog, the unknown quantity. The sprinters settled into their blocks. The stadium fell into a sacred hush. For Shanoya, this was the moment of absolute clarity. Set. The crack of the starter's pistol was a clean, sharp sound. Shanoya's reaction was flawless. Her drive phase was the part of the race she and Coach Thompson had worked on relentlessly. She did not panic. At the 40-meter mark, she began her transition. While other runners were starting to strain, Shanoya felt relaxed. The final 30 meters was a blur. She could feel herself pulling level with the leaders, and then, impossibly, pulling ahead. She dipped at the line, a final, desperate lunge for glory. And then, there was silence. Not from the crowd, but in her own head. She had given everything. She slowly turned and looked back at the giant electronic scoreboard. And then, she saw it. Next to her name, Shanoya Douglas, was the number 1. A time of 10.85 seconds flashed beside it. She had done it. She had won the national championship. She was going to the Olympics. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Her legs gave way. A microphone was thrust into her face. The reporter asked her how she felt. Shanoya was speechless. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the rain. The victory sent shockwaves through the track and field world. In her home parish of Trelawney, people poured into the streets, celebrating like a national holiday. She was no longer just Shanoya Douglas. She was a national hero. After the Olympics, Shanoya made a special trip. She went home to Trelawney. She visited her primary school. She told them that success was not a straight line. It was built on failure, hard work, and the support of a community. So, she started a small foundation to provide equipment, coaching support, and travel stipends for talented athletes from underserved communities. She was planting seeds, yet, her story is far from over. The fire lit on that primary school sports day still burns within her. The quiet, relentless hunger remains. Somewhere in Jamaica today, a young girl is drawing a chalk line on a grassy field. She is chasing a possibility, a dream that now feels a little more real. This is the true legacy of Shanoya Douglas. It is not found in the record books, but in the countless new journeys that will begin in Lane 4, inspired by hers.